Crankcase breathers. Hey, Jim Bob, Ronnie, Jim, Mark, Wayne, y'all can hear me good. Hey, Chad, my friend, thank you for the great shout out on your engine birthday. that was a heck of a job, man, and we're really thankful that you gave us that opportunity to do that job. I'm glad it's really paid off. Oh, by the way, Chad, your warranty's off on that engine. Just saying. And I didn't know if you thought it was still on, but it wasn't more than one run warranty, and we got over that about 100 times ago. I don't know how many runs it was, but it was a lot, wasn't it? Drove it all over, did burnout contests, went everywhere. That was great. It was a 124. It was a really nice project. We converted a stock 103 over to a 124 with our pistons and head working cams. Hey, Ed, Chad, Alan, good to see you guys, man. Glad it sounds good. Mitch, Alan, Dave. Be careful, Chad. Walter, how's it going, my friend? That's another old timer in there with me. We've been around the block, haven't we, brother? Yeah, we got some stuff to share, stuff to talk about. It's good to see y'all's names, man. Tuesday afternoon, 6 o'clock in Georgia. Shop's still busy. Hey, Graham. Crankcase, pressure, crankcase ventilation. It's a little bit trouble for us with the air-cooled engines. I mean, the automotive doesn't have as big a problem with it, and the OEs don't allow any crankcase ventilation to escape into the atmosphere. They capture it all, run it back through the intake. If you ever pull your heads off of your car or your motorcycle or your Harley or whatever, and your intake valves are covered in carbon, they got a lot of deposits on the back, and they're not even shaped like they used to be. That's because there's a lot of oil and oily residue and crankcase ventilation going through your intake. And I understand Harley has to do that for the EPA, and I know that OEs, car guys, and all the engine people have to recirculate that stuff. But here in the high performance industry, we don't have to. We work really hard to get clean air into our intake system, so we want clean air going into our engine. So, hey, Dave, Sampson, Scott, I see a lot of good names on there, but there's a few products I wanted to share with you that talk about these subjects, about crankcase ventilation. I also want to tell you, I'm looking, you and I both, we look on the market and we see a lot of products. We see A1 has a really nice ventilation piece that screws into the oil fill hole. It looks like it's on top of the transmission. That gives the crankcase vent. It gives the pressure inside the engine a place to go without it having to go through your intake manifold, go back through your air cleaner. If you don't remove it from the air cleaner, and it still could get some oily mess in your intake tract. So we want to clean that up, and we can start at the beginning and go to the end, or skip around, kind of like how I normally do. I sort of skip around, but I put some stuff on my table that I want to go over with you piece by piece and show you kind of how it works and what it's for. Hey, JT, what's up, Jeff? Cliff, man, that's some good friends right there. Ian, what's up, man? David, I got the king on here watching. Wow. Thank y'all for watching. But I want you to know that the crankcase ventilation, in my opinion, and please, of course, please flavor all this with it being my opinion. This is not the absolute end-all, be-all, or the gospel about what's going on in the engine, because we learn so fast and learn stuff every day that I got this quote that I say that my engine rules are only good for 7 days. And that's because, hey Todd, Edward, man, some good racers on here, Alex. But my rules, or whatever you call my engine rules, are only good for 7 days because we learn so fast and some of the old rules get pushed out. But what I think we have learned is when we are sealed up with our rings and our bore and our pistons, and our rings are all sealed up and the engine's running, like a V-twin or like a V8, like it does, a 90-degree V8, and then of course a 45-degree V-twin, and then of course an inline 4 goes like this. So it's all monkey motions and hand motions, and I know y'all are laughing at me there, but the Harley deal where we have the pistons going on one crank pin and they have 2 rods on 1 crank pin. There is a time when they get real close together in their stroke, and you have to, and with the big bores, we're losing ring seal because of several designs in the pistons, and even our stock Harleys have, let me say, please, you guys that have Harley shops and sell them for a living, we need y'all. We need Harley shops. We love Harley shops. We love the dealership. We have to have new Harleys, but if we're gonna have old Harleys, or we want to make them faster than they were, like they come from the factory. I had a brand new Deluxe come through here the other day, and it had a stage 1 tune on it, and it had 79 horsepower. 69 horsepower on a 107 and 100 foot-pounds of torque. And it was cool looking bike, but it ain't fun to ride. So we put a Thrasher kit in it, pumped it up, put ported heads and bigger valves and one of our 30-30 camshafts, and picked it up about 40 horsepower and about 30 foot-pounds of torque. And man, that thing feels like it'll blow you off the seat now, hanging onto the handlebars for dear life. So that's cool. Hey Bryce, love your name, man. I'm not being prejudiced, I just love your name. I think Bryce is a cool name. Good thing your last name isn't George, huh? Bryce, George. Anyway, I'm joking. But back to the crankcase pressure, there's a lot of pressure above the pistons making the power stroke. Not like Ian King and those guys with the Larry McBride and Mitch Brown and those guys with the Nitro Harleys and stuff. They have thousands of PSI on top of those pistons. And if the ring and the bore and the pistons can't contain that, the pressure will go by the pistons and it will go in the bottom end and it will blow the bottom up. The crankcase and everything will expand like a balloon, and the base gaskets and the rocker gaskets, push rod seals, crank seals, none of that stuff can contain that pressure. So at Star Racing Power, we work really hard on our cylinder bore and hone. We work really hard on our rings and our piston design so that we can contain that pressure, so that those very valuable cylinder heads that we spend all the money on, port work, airflow, bigger valves, better seats, throttle bodies, manifolds, air cleaners, exhaust systems. We work really hard on making all that be the best it can be so we can move more air and fuel through the engine. We want to get as much air and fuel in as we can. We want to trap it. We want to light it. We want to make the piston go down as hard as it can to turn the crankshaft, and then we want the exhaust valve to open and the exhaust to come right out the exhaust pipe. And there's several rules, not rules, but the things that I think when the exhaust system fills up at some RPM, when the exhaust system fills up and it goes in, finds a restriction, and then it starts backing back out of the pipe and it gets back to the cylinder head, no more air will go in that engine. So unless you have a blower, a supercharger, nitro, or some turbo where you can stuff air in there. But on normally aspirated, as soon as the exhaust system fills up, it's finished going in. So when you want an exhaust pipe that gives you the torque curve you want, remember where you want that power range to be, and you also got to make sure that the whole system is balanced so you can get the horsepower peak and the torque peak where you want it. Back to the ring seal. If we let any leak by the rings, and there's several reasons which I've gone over a bunch of Tech Talk Tuesdays, but there's several reasons why you get blow by. And when the pressure goes by those rings, the bottom end tries to contain it. So we have a lot of guys will use just a little bottle. This is a neat little Puke bottle we use. It's a crankcase pressure overflow. It's I want to show you in here. It's got, we run a little piece of foam rubber in it. The oily mist comes from the cylinder heads or crankcase and goes in this bottle, and then if any oil wants to stay in here, it fills up in here, and then we have a little drain hole here, and the pressure that builds up in the bottle can escape through this breather air cleaner here. So this is a really neat little piece, and this would hook to your A1 cycle vent that would go in your crankcase. It would hook to your Mad Monkey vent or whoever's vents you got, and I'm cool with that. The bottom line is when we fit, like Bagzilla. I'm gonna give you an example. Bagzilla was the red Harley that I raced in the Harley drags, and it never had anything come out of the breather. It didn't have a catch can on it. Nothing ever came out of the hose. It had one hose on one cylinder head because the rings were so sealed up that when the pressure we were putting on top of the piston stayed contained above the rings. So we never let any leak by into the bottom end and expand that pressure in the bottom and have oily mist blow out of the crankcase out through the vents or the gaskets. I know that sounds a little hard to believe, but that was in pro stock, the only way you can go fast, normally aspirated, is to trap all of that and use all of that. So if you're losing ring seal, you're not going to be able to build crankcase vacuum. You're not going to be able to contain the pressure in the bottom end. And even if you go look at the top fuel cars and the nitro Harleys and some of the nitro funny cars, they have a Puke tank on the back of the top fuel car and in the funny cars that's bigger than the engine. The Puke tank is bigger than the engine, and it has these really big hoses that come from the engine and go into the Puke tank, so that when they blow a piston or they blow a ring, all that 10,000 PSI horsepower goes in the bottom end and it expands into that tank, and it makes a mess all up down the racetrack. And I've oversimplified that. Let me put an L in there. Simplified. So I'm going to change over to the table here, and let's look at some of this stuff, and I can show you a little more. Bear with me as I am cell phone challenged. All right. This is the little Puke tank I was talking about. Cute little deal, universal mounting. This doesn't fit any motorcycle. This could fit in a car. It could fit on a fender well. It could fit on a motorcycle fender well. I like to make a little aluminum bracket or a little steel bracket, bolt on here with some, I think they're, I don't remember, quarter 20 threads already in here. It's got a drain plug on it. It's made in the USA, and it has a crankcase. It lets the pressure escape, and also it traps oil in here that may get through this hose. Where does this hose come from? Somebody asked me today, where does the hose come from? Well, let's go look at an M8, and let's discover that right now. Everybody hang on, this is a bumpy ride. Okay, here's a Milwaukee 8, and the whole crankcase system comes through here. So the pressure builds up in the bottom end, comes up the push rod tubes, and it builds up in the cylinder heads, and there's little rubber valves in here that let the pressure go out and not in. So it doesn't vacuum dirty air or clean air through these holes. When pressure builds up in the bottom end, it'll blow out of this gasket, it blows out of these gaskets, it blows out of these gaskets, it pukes out through the push rod seals up in the head, it comes out the lower rocker boxes, upper rocker boxes, it leaks everywhere. So when you start weeping oil out of these two holes on your Milwaukee 8 or your twin cam, that oil is dumping out and going in through the throttle body and goes right back in the engine, and I call it coax up your intake valves. Now, this is a brand new one, so it doesn't have any miles on it much, but if you look inside, you can see this is an oily mess. The intake port should never be an oily mess. That oily mess came from a lot of oil mixing in with the intake. This was tuned up nice and running good, but we don't want that crankcase pressure going in here. So I'm going to go back to the table, and let's look at some stuff again. I hope you guys don't get dizzy watching me. Yeah, it works like a vacuum. That's right. It's a one-way valve in the valve cover, so you're exactly right. And I'm really not going to go into a bunch of that right now, but I wanted to also tell you there's a lot of air filters out there. There's a lot of good air filters out there, and I'm going to show you. This is not a commercial for HPI, but Jimmy and those guys over there, Eric and those guys at HPI have done a good job. We work closely with them and kind of learn about that stuff, but this is one of their V2s. I like this. They make them for the twin cams, and they make them for the Milwaukee 8, and I'll show you one of the reasons I really like them. Now, this is a cover. This is just a cover, okay, and it screws off. It's just for looks. Like I said, this is not an infomercial. This is a tech talk, and I'm going to tell you about why that would be some cool stuff to have. One reason I like it is because it makes horsepower. It lets us make horsepower because it is very complementary for the intake design. Check out this velocity stack. When you bolt this on to your 62 or 64 millimeter throttle body for your Milwaukee 8, this little unit right here adds power. It adds horsepower, and it also adds torque. And it's got some length to it, which is really good. And I've showed you the Rambo thing we sell that HPI makes also. It adds a lot of length to boost low-end power, and if it's good enough, it doesn't even hurt the top-end power. But I want to show you the interesting part about the crankcase breather part of this. Let's see if I can get this off without making a mess. All right, this little plate comes off, and behind this plate, you got those two holes that come out of the heads that I was showing you. They come through here, and the pressure, the crankcase pressure, goes through this canal, and it dumps out this hole. And y'all see this hole in this air cleaner right here. Okay, and this one, this channel comes along here and dumps out this hole as well. Now that lets oily mist back through here, and it's contained inside your air cleaner. So you are EPA cool. You're awesome. You get all the crap that's coming out of your engine will go right back in your engine, so you can burn it again. And this is the problem with it. I'm gonna sit down a minute. Just want to tell you, when you have the oily crap going back in here, whatever octane you're putting in your gas tank, if you're putting 91, 89, 93, 100, whatever you're putting in, the more oily mist that you inject through these veins out of the heads back into this air cleaner, the more your octane goes down. I mean, you might be putting 91 in it, but what really is probably happening in your engine is spark knocking and detonating and overheating, because it's actually burning crappy air that is tainted, and it's infected by this oily mist, and it makes the octane, the more oily mist that goes in through here, the more exhaust gas that goes through here, the more octane goes down. I didn't mean to say exhaust gas. I meant to say crankcase pressure. So what do you do about that? Well, here's a neat little deal. This is an option for the V2. Instead of the spacers, that thing's greasy. Instead of the spacers that go right here to hold us off the head, you can actually buy this little kit with a spigot on here. See this little spigot? This little tiny little spigot? All right, that looks simple enough. Everybody can drill and tap that, but how do you stop the oil from going in here? How do you stop the oily mist from going in here? So they made this really cool bolt. This is a really neat bolt. Check it out. It's got an O-ring groove here. It's bored here. And this little spacer has an O-ring groove here. Counterboard here. So it goes on here with this O-ring to seal it. I hope y'all can see this without me. I'm jumping around. Let's see if that's going to be right. Nope. I guess it's a real tight fit. Maybe. I didn't figure it out too good. Maybe Jimmy can come on here and show me how. Anyway, this is one put together. They're not for us to take apart. They come assembled. But when you put this on and the crankcase pressure comes through here, this is what screws into the head now. You remember those little holes in the heads? I said the pressure comes out. You put this on here. Put the air cleaner on it like this. And you put this bolt in here. And now it's blocked off where that oily mist can't get in here. What do you do with this little spigot that sticks out? Well, HPI, when you buy this kit from me or them or wherever, it comes with this little hose. And this little hose is a really tight fit. And, you know, you wouldn't think that much would go through there, but it will. So you get this little hose, pressure comes through here, it's blocked off here, and the pressure blows through here, and the oil and the excess pressure goes through this hose, and you can do anything you want to with it. You can run it to the ground. A lot of people just run the two hoses to the ground because if your engine's in good shape, not much stuff comes out of there. But I went to the Napa store and I got this little T. It's got 1/8 inch female thread on all three corners. I found the little nipples that are the same size. I think Dorman sells this, or Napa, or whoever. but you can put those little hoses over here, and then this one big hose, you put the 2 little hoses here. You can hide it behind, under the tank, or back under the seat, or anywhere, but I put the big hose on this one, and the 2 little hoses here. So in reality, what happens, you guys, is the breathers come out of the heads, go into the T, goes through the big hose, and then it goes into our puke tank. That's one way you can do it, to keep the oil out of the intake system. And the reason, I'm not saying this is the only intake to use, or the only air cleaner to use, but it's a good one. It makes horsepower, and it protects you. Just spit on it. Yeah, that's right. Hey, Brian. JT, I need one. Yes, you do. I tell you what everybody does. I'm spilling oil on the floor. I'm going to get in trouble. I spilled oil on the floor. And you know what? It came out of that old raggedy hose. That wasn't a new hose. That was just a piece of hose I found. But that's one way to get these long spacers. They are made for the Milwaukee 8. I think, no, twin cam, and the short ones are made for the Milwaukee 8. Yeah, let's see what it says. Milwaukee 8. Yeah, the short ones are made for the Milwaukee 8. They come with the bolts, the O-rings, and when you buy a V2 air cleaner for your Milwaukee 8, you can ask for this as an option. And I think it's the right thing to do because it keeps the oil out of the air cleaner. It keeps it out of your throttle body. It keeps it off of your intake valves and out of your ports, and it keeps your octane pure and high because you got clean air going in and you got fuel going in, so you got a good air-fuel ratio that's not tainted or messed up with the octane reduction of the oil. Man, that hose messed up. Hey, look, y'all think this is rehearsed? Check this out. I messed up my shirt. I messed up my pants. I got oil all over me. I might not even be able to go home. How can one guy make such a mess with a little piece of hose? Good grief. Okay, next thing I want to tell you guys. Hey, Chris. I want to also tell you about the Milwaukee 8. I don't know, a lot of guys blow head gaskets, pop head gaskets, head bolts break. But this bolt right here that comes in your Milwaukee 8 comes from Harley, very inexpensive. It's a nice bolt. But you got to understand, this is a one-time bolt. This is used for one torque. You torque it one time, it stretches. When you torque it down to whatever the foot-pounds are, 50, I don't know what it is. I hadn't looked. But whatever it torques to, it stretches this bolt so that it ends up clamping the head to the cylinder to make the gasket seal and stay tight. But if you take this apart and put it back together and take it apart and put it back together, this will break. It's only good for one time. So this is an option. Every Milwaukee 8 we build, we buy new head bolts right from Harley, or we get them from S&S. They sell these high quality bolts for the Milwaukee 8 cylinder heads. These can be used several times. I think a new set of head bolts from Harley are like 30 or 40 bucks. These cost maybe 100 bucks or more. I don't know how much these are, but these are reusable over and over and over. So if you're a guy that's continuously doing upgrades or just wants the finest you can get, I would use these head bolts instead. For sure, never use the ones that came in the engine, because I have people call me all the time, hey man, I just got your Thrasher kit, I got your heads, I got your piston kit, I got your cam, blah, blah, blah. And I blew a head gasket. And I was like, well, did you get it tuned? Yeah, I got it tuned. I said, well, why'd you blow a head gasket? Well, I don't know. Well, the head bolt broke. Well, was it new? Well, yeah, the bike was new. And I said, no. Did you put new head bolts in when you built the motorcycle engine this time? Oh, no, we don't never put new bolts in them. And I said, okay, there you go. They're going to break. So that's just a tip from the old guy. Make sure you put new bolts in every time you build one. If anybody's on, let's try. This doesn't usually work because I'm 30 seconds behind, but I'm going to try real quick. We'll see if we can move over and do a little bit question and answer. Let's just try it one time. I'm going to sit in this chair right here. I made a mess, y'all. Jackie is not going to be happy with me. If y'all see me and you have a second and you wanted to ask me a question, if I don't want to answer it, I'm going to skip right over you and act like I didn't see it. But if you ask me one that I want to answer, I might do it right now. So anyway, let's try it. Anybody on here live? Or all you guys just gone and came by and said hi? Screen ain't moving no more, but I can see me. Can you see me? Let's go. Shoot me one. Are you going to Gulfport in November? Is that your question? Well, I don't think the breathers. All right, that's good. Hang on. The breathers are not on my site yet. They're too new. PM me. Send me an instant message or something. Let's do it. Sorry about that. Coming to Gulfport, I'm half and half right now. I signed up for the class. I signed up for the M8 class. We have a M8 that we're working on. It really depends on a lot of things that happen between now and November, but I am coming to the Georgia race. Okay, we got to back up. I don't know if I can back up. Let's see here. One mechanical adjustment you can make to quicken your reaction time. Don't hold on so tight. Let me say it in a positive way. Hold the lever as light as you can without it moving away from the bar. Because most people, as soon as you get up to the starting line on a Pro Stock bike at an NHRA race or anywhere and you're nervous or excited, which some people will say I'm not nervous, but you are excited. If you are excited and you change your concentration from this to something else like the Christmas tree or your competition or the noise or the cameras or the people or a sponsor or trying to make money or trying to pay your bills, if you clamp down on this, as soon as you want to go, you have to relax the muscles to let go instead of holding it just to the bar and letting go. You'll be tenths quicker, tenths. Did I run a vacuum pump on Bagzilla? No, I did not. I should have. It would have made me go faster. How do you pick valve spring pressure for lower RPM? Valve spring pressure for lower RPM. Well, you got to be in control even if you're at low RPM or high RPM, but you don't need, I mean, if you're going to put a bigger cam in and you have a coil, you have a valve spring that has a lot of coils, let me get one to show you. A stock valve spring. This is a stock Milwaukee 8 valve spring. All right, it has a lot of coils. It has a lot of coils. So it won't take but 490 lift to mash all these together, and you can't open the valve any further than this coil bind. This is called bind height. When you tighten this up to, say you got it on 100 pounds on the seat, and then you roll the cam over to full lift and this compresses to solid, then you have to have a different spring. So if you put a lighter spring with less wire, less coils, it's going to be weaker. So what you want to do is you got to stand that wire up, and it's got to be stronger so that it's harder to open and close. And the main reason you have valve springs at all is to control the valve. You want the valve to try and follow the camshaft motion. And if it's like a overhead cam engine where you don't have push rods or anything, then you have to have a valve spring that can keep the lifter or keep the cam on the lifter or the valve. And if it's a Harley where you got rock arms, you got push rods, and you got lifters, and you got cams, and you got chains and sprockets, all of that stuff winds up and unwinds and winds up and unwinds. So the push rods look like when you do pole vaulting, you see the people in the Olympics when they run and throw the pole in the ground and it bends all the way over and then throws them over the bar. Your push rods do that 100 times a second. Your push rods pole vault and let go. And if your springs aren't strong enough to keep the valve in check, you're going to have a nightmare on your hands. When will the next Bagzilla be ready? Working on it now. Maybe we'll get it done here in a month or so. I don't know if it'll be ready for the Georgia race, but we're trying really hard. Hey, Riddell. Hey, Bryce. I see that my time is up. I really like you guys asking some questions. That's good stuff. That means I didn't have to make as much of a plan, but sorry I flopped around a little bit. It was fun. I love it. And everybody look after each other because we're all we got. And, you know, the people that are looking at this with me right now and watching me, and I'm watching you, and we're talking, it's people that have the same passion, similar passion. We want our engines to run better. We want to learn more about it. We want to make more power, better performance, and we want to understand what's up. And I love it. And I appreciate you guys sharing that with me. May God bless y'all. I'll see you again next Tuesday. And please write me and ask me questions. May God bless y'all.